Hello and welcome to a joint presentation from Redwood and Rebus, presenting together on moving from reactive to proactive. We're going to be talking about how an AI-driven environment within a warehouse execution model can start to evolve to gain real-time insights and become a much more fluid operation. My name is Dan Gordon. I'm Redwood's Senior Vice President of Solutions Engineering. And with me is one of my favorite people to collaborate with is Adib Tak. I'll let him introduce himself.
Thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Dan said, my name is Reactive. I'm the Director of Sales Engineering here with Rebus, and I'll be co-hosting the session today to walk you through the platform and how we, together with Redwood Logistics, are able to solve what everybody in the industry is currently trying to address. How can we bring smarter decision-making into our operations? So for today, there are three things that we want to leave everybody with. First, how do we connect data without turning it into a custom one-off IT project? A lot of companies that I think Dan and I have seen over the years is folks that are in much better needs or integration, but the blocker usually is the amount of time and effort required to connect your WMS, TMS, ERP, labor, 3PL data all together in one place. And second, we're essentially going to walk you through how a real-time labor reallocation scenario can actually occur. So this is the part I'm most excited about myself, where we get into the day-to-day decisions supervisors actually have to make. And third, we'd love to leave you with a realistic path forward, not a giant transformation program on day one, but a practical way to start with one site, one use case, and one high impact integration point.
First, let's talk a little bit about who Redwood and Rebus are. Redwood is a modern 4PL, recently named as a visionary in Gartner's first 4PL Magic Quadrant. We take a little bit of a different approach towards the 4PL model, where others might say, hey, this is where supply chain technology and logistics execution come together and in a single packaged solution. What Redwood wants to be able to do is take a technology-led approach towards logistics orchestration. The entire idea is to create a network of different best-in-class point solutions and be able to bring those together, both from a transportation and logistics partnership perspective, as well as from a technology provider perspective. In taking that open ecosystem approach, the most important part is integration, and which is why we created Redwood Connect, which is the first full service integration platform as a service for the supply chain space specifically, combining reusable playbooks, patterns, and processes, a team of logistics experts who are actively implementing and integrating, as well as an entire marketplace of different connectors to be able to bring together all of these different ecosystems and provide top tier solutions like Rebus. Edith?
Thanks, Dan. So as I mentioned, integration plays a crucial part in all of these projects that we work with. So similar to Dan, our team background comes from actual operations. So we're through and through ops folks, with a lot of us having boots on the ground experience. And how we always like to position ourselves is we're an actual ops tool built by ops folks for ops folks, if you will. Logistics is in our DNA. Over 70% of our team members actually come from previous boots on the ground experience. So while we get the integration from Redwood, Rebus brings in that control tower layer to the equation. So that means real-time visibility into your labor, your productivity, your utilizations, inventory, automation data, all of your process flows and operational performance under one hood. So we want to provide a means to unify all those data together in real time to support better warehouse decision-making. So from a warehouse execution standpoint, the question we are trying to address is not, can I build a report? But the question for us is, can the supervisors make a better decision before the shifts get away from them? This is where we integrate our AI-powered decision-making to operations folks to go ahead and make sure we give them data they need in real time to take action that they need in winning the day.
And it's a great trend that we see together, where we see both on the Rebus side and the Redwood side. While these are both technology-driven solutions, we want to put the functional experts front and center and leverage the years and years of experience and success that have been proven over that time. Adib, you want to tell us maybe a little bit about what does good look like?
Absolutely. So, I mean, this slide's probably going to feel familiar to a lot of warehouse and logistics teams, right? The issue usually isn't that people don't know what good execution necessarily looks like, but the issue is that the information needed to execute well is quite fragmented. The WMS knows what work is happening. TMS knows what is coming in or going out. Your labor system knows who's clocked in and where time is being spent. Is there room for improvement? And your ERP may have your order or inventory context, but when those systems aren't connected in a way that supports that real-time decision-making, the operation ends up relying on picking up the phone and making phone calls, spreadsheets, manual checks, and the classical supervisor experience. And that creates three main problems. One being visibility. Leaders may know what happened yesterday, but they don't know what is happening right now with enough detail to act. Second tends to be integration. Everyone, every new use case you have essentially becomes another IT request or a spreadsheet workaround. And third, and then that's the main thing we want to focus on today, like we discussed, was AI readiness. AI is only useful if it has clean, timely, connected data. If the data is delayed or disconnected, AI just becomes a smarter way to explain yesterday's problem. That further goes to my point of, it's not can I build a report, it's can I make a decision at the supervisor level before the shifts get carried away from me so I can focus on winning the day, not trying to go ahead and spend my day figuring out how to get data sets from all these disparate systems.
And just one thing to add for that is on the integration piece, a lot of the best tools out in the market, whether it is the WMS itself, the data and the analytics behind it, or the AI-driven proactive model that everybody's searching for, one of the biggest barriers is that integration side. And the reason why it becomes a challenge is, yes, there's always IT backlogs there, and it's very difficult to create a whole bunch of different point-to-point integrations. But there's also the scenario in which a lot of folks are combining multiple different 3PLs operating their warehouses, different WMSs across those 3PLs, or even different WMSs internally. So even the ability to integrate through a single WMS solution doesn't give you a holistic view of all of that data. And so this is where integration becomes that foundational layer for solving the upstream problems.
So when these systems are connected, the value is not just better reporting, it's better execution. So you get an end-to-end visibility because you can see how transformation events affect the warehouse. You get aligned labor and dock execution because supervisors can see whether the labor plan still matches what's actually happening. You get real-time operational control because exceptions surface while there's still time to act. You get better cost to serve clarity because now you can understand which customers, activities, shifts, or operational exceptions are driving that extra labor and cost. And you get shared accountability. So instead of transportation, warehouse, and IT teams all looking at each other, and looking at their own version of the truth, everyone is operating under the same connected picture. So the real value is not just knowing that a shipment was late, it's knowing what the lateness does to the labor plan, the dock plan, the workload, and the service commitment that you have to your clients. And that's what we're hoping to work through today to really give you a bit of that deep understanding.
So when you bring these things together, what you end up being able to do is take action based off of the data that's fed, not just from your 3PLs or your WMS, but also starting to add in some of the other internal applications like your TMS, as well as additional trading partner insights, whether that's from suppliers or even customers, plus direct carrier feedback. Being able to bring together the entire ecosystem and normalize that data, feed that to a single repository is what's going to allow for the largest contextual window and the best actionable data from there.
Yeah, and for me, what I really like about this here again is it makes the actual architecture practical for you to see. So while Redwood sits in the middle as the management integration layer, centralizing all that crucial data that your ops would need on the day-to-day, we want to take that information as the warehouse intelligence layer and connect those disparate systems together and provide that integration and operational intelligence so that ops understands what they need to do with it without just getting another set of metrics to look forward to. Now, there's a key distinction here that we want to take a look at. Most AI tools tell you what happened, but we want to tell you what to do about it. That is a very big distinction that I want to make. So traditional reporting tends to be retrospective, if you will. It tells you what happened after the work is done. A good dashboard improves visibility, no question about that. It helps you understand what's happening. But next level to that is decision in support. So that's where Rebus intraday actually comes into play. So if an inbound or an outbound load is getting delayed, dock schedule is changing, throughput starts falling behind, or labor is sitting in the wrong area, we want to be able to detect those decisions, understand the impact, and recommend where your labor should be moved. Now, at the end of the day, the impact really here happens at the operational level for a supervisor. So for a supervisor, what really matters at the end of the day is, hey, my day is going to be full of trade-offs. Can I make the right trade-offs in here to still focus on winning the day? So do I keep people in my actual orders they're currently working? Do I move them to picking? Do I protect my outbounds or my inbounds? Do I wait for the truck? Do I reassign those people around before my indirect time starts to climb up? So intraday essentially is designed to make that decision easier and faster. And to be clear, the goal is not to replace the supervisor. The goal is to give the supervisor better visibility and recommended actions early enough that they can still change the outcome of the day they're working with. So this is the simplest way to understand the joint solution over here. Layer 1 is Redwood Connect that we're going to get to see today as well. It's the managed integration layer that Dan was mentioning. It brings together all of your WMS, TMS, ERP, 3PL, logistics data, anything that you have out there into a connected pipeline. Layer 2 is Rebus. That's the labor management and warehouse intelligence layer. This is where the warehouse leaders see performance, your utilization, your staffing gaps, your dock alignment, your throughput, and executives can see things like cost to serve and places where there's better room for improvement. And layer 3, tying all of that together, is our Rebus intraday. So this is our AI execution support layer, if you will. So we recently introduced intraday as our full-fledged AI capability to help warehouse supervisors make real-time labor decisions during the shift by analyzing live warehouse data, identifying risk, and recommending labor adjustments live as the shift is actually happening. So this is important because most warehouse analytics tell you what has already happened. Intraday is focused on what you should do next while the shift is still actively happening.
And what's great about this model is because it's created with these with the abstracted layers, is you essentially are treating your managed integration layer as a independent data layer. So regardless of how many different data sources and what you want to use as your source of truth, as that changes over time, because you have a strong integration layer, you're able to react agilely and without any interruption to your business, while still continuing to consume the same insights and proactive action through the Rebus analytics side, as well as through the Rebus AI layer.
So this is the scenario we'll actually use in the demo. It's 11 a.m. A truck is running 3 hours late. What do you do? So in a traditional operation, first of all, you're going to look at a handful of systems to really understand the impact of this. And Dan, in your case, what do you usually see? What, anywhere from 5 to 10 different systems supervisors have to go fish the data through?
Honestly, the supervisors are lucky if they ever even get a notice in the first place. But even if they do, they're scrambling and they're trying to re-coordinate on a manual basis just based off of the data that they do have. So generally what we see is especially on the inbound side, that transportation is just entirely disconnected from the warehouse side visibility.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. You're going to have one. You're lucky if you get an answer. And if you do, you might get it, 11:45 when it's already a tad bit too late through maybe a phone call or an email, or if somebody even is lucky to have access to yet another system to take a look at it. But by that point, labor's already been committed, right? People may be staged for work that is not ready. Other areas may be falling behind. And it ends up being that the operation absorbs the cost because you get that bit of a shockwave effect that carries forward into the rest of the day. So with Redwood Connect and Rebus, that signal detected is much, much earlier. So Redwood Detect captures the transportation delay and routes that signal to us for the data connected layer. And then Rebus understands that the delay affects the dock schedule, the labor plan, and our intraday agent then recommends how we redeploy labor before that window closes. So that is the story that we want to show, not just visibility into the delay, but action based on that delay. So late trucks are not new. What changes here is how quickly the warehouse understands the impact and how quickly the team can respond.
Let's just go ahead and show this in real time.
So let's take a look at what that tends to look like now if the team is actually working through it. We want to give you all the data that you need all in one place, easy to understand, even have it on a monitor where I can quickly go ahead and react to it. We being the labor provider, we can actually go and understand each department that you have right now, how effective they are at the work that they're doing, how many hours of work they have, how many folks they need, and what are they actually currently having fulfilling each of those roles. But what I want to focus your attention a little bit towards here is, hey, with the folks that I have and the work that I have ahead of me, where does my labor need to go to make the most out of my day? So in this case, we ask the system to go ahead and recommend who to move around based on what we actually have currently ahead of us in terms of outstanding work with the labor team that we have, so that I can make sure, like I'm seeing here with my team falling a little bit behind on the work that I have, I'm able to establish a new labor plan that makes sure I'm coming out of the red zone into the green. So the system starts analyzing through all of the data and starts giving us a recommendation of who we might need to move and why. So we're in recovery mode first and foremost over here. So we want to rebalance our labor towards the earliest deadline that we have immediately. Move Tracy from order that they're working at, 632, into an order that's more critical, where we're definitely going to need some attention to be held. Repeat the similar processes for folks that might currently be working in orders that are not high priority, either based on your requirements or where they're supposed to be at the end of the day. But this is the plan we have with our current workforce that we're familiar with and the schedule that we have on the dock as far as we as supervisors are concerned. but we're not here to talk about current state. We're here to talk about what happens when you start getting all of these disconnected systems to communicate effectively, efficiently, and most importantly, as close to real time as possible. Dan, I think it'll help for us to be able to see how Redwood Connect comes into play to be able to streamline that experience. If you want to take that over.
Great. Let's take a look at the TMS side as some of this information is coming through. So what we have here is just a simple mock TMS that has a shipment that we've already sent to Rebus previously. Now, when we sent it, it was based on some outdated information that we are now going to go through and update. So what we have is just a simple shipment. We have Redwood 555 as our shipment ID, along with a couple of different key reference numbers that are here. And the status in the most recent location is actually from last night in Bedford Park, Illinois, because what we're doing is we're moving from Chicago, Illinois to Minneapolis. Well, if that's going to be moving overnight, and the last update that we received was last night at 6 p.m. saying, hey, I'm in Bedford Park, Illinois, we don't actually know what's going on. Now, ideally, a carrier is already connected and you're receiving closer to real-time pings of where they're at. In this case, we're going to say that this is an exception flow where the information, for whatever reason, just wasn't coming through until late morning this morning. So now what we're going to say is we've just received at 11 a.m. a new update, and the driver is still in transit, except they're in Stillwater, Minnesota, and just getting ready to coming off break. Will be there around 4 p.m. is what our tracking person heard from the driver or the dispatcher. So now when we update this, we're going to say that they are in Stillwater, Minnesota. And now we are going to update this and say that, you know what, they're actually not going to make it by 1. They're going to be making it by 4 o'clock. And so I'm going to go ahead and send this all the way to Rebus. So now we've triggered this. In Redwood Connect, we're going to actually follow this transaction all the way through. And so the way that we're able to connect all of these different systems is just through a series of different componentized pieces on a design canvas in a no-code platform that allows logistics experts to build out these integrations. And when we say no code, we truly mean no code. So in this integration, all we're doing is following through how the API is going to receive this. We're going to pull some metadata out, and then we're going to use the proprietary Fuse platform in order to map the data from our input format into the expected Rebus format. The same thing we would do for any of the WMSs or other systems that we want to be able to pull together into a single data repository. So let's actually follow through this data as it's coming in. And here's our data. We can see every step along the way, and as well as being able to actually see the end payload that gets transmitted. So now I'm going to pause and hand it back to Adip, who's going to show what actionable information starts coming through from this data.
Okay, so before the disruptions happened, we looked at the current operating plan. We came up with an actual plan on, hey, here's how we would want to go ahead and make sure we're moving the right folks around to the right tasks that we have ahead of us. And we saw the delay that gets sent into our platform here through Redwood Connect, and that's where it becomes very important, because instead of somebody having to wait there and run the plan with the expectation of this is where I'm at and this is how I'm going to be operating, we can now get those delays and translate that delay into a warehouse impact. The question is not simply, is the truck late? The question is, okay, what does this do to our labor plan and our workflow? So if we've got the labor plan already assigned to go in a particular way, but as we saw, the Redwood 555 order actually got pushed back a couple of hours, can I reprioritize my tasks ahead of me instead to be a bit more impactful to make sure I'm diverting the right resources to the right place? So let's ask the system to give us, with the information that we have, a new labor plan that we can actually work with. While we're running that through to get it in, the call out here is, while I'm running this manually for the sake of demo, what we're looking to do is have these run perpetually towards the back, behind the scenes in the back end, to be able to give us that bit of information as it is actually occurring. So run through the new workload that I have, generate a new labor plan for me, and understands how I can start making decisions to support the change and impact that we have. So the system now recommended a labor reallocation based on the updated conditions. Instead of the supervisor having to manually compare dock schedules and labor plans, we're going to be recommending some actions for them to take. Again, we don't want to necessarily put an AI buzzword in there. We want to have the system do that for us. So as we saw, given that Redwood 555 order was now delayed already ahead of there, we can review the recommendation, understand that I can move Redwood from Redwood 555 to instead order ending with 216 to make a much better impact that we've got going on here, along with the rest of the folks that I would like to bring into the equation. So this operational impact is a more stable near-term posture because of the most urgent orders getting reinforced before they become a service risk, while we're still trying to finish off the ones that were already done and delayed. So go ahead, Dan.
Let's connect that end to end. If we go back to those 3 layers that we were talking about, what ended up happening is you're receiving data in from your carrier partners, integrating that to your TMS or your other operating systems. You're then pulling that data again through Redwood Connect and bringing that to a single data warehouse that is hosted and maintained by Rebus. You now have the actionable insights directly within Rebus, as well as the AI layer, who is actively telling you which labor changes need to be made and keeping you ahead of any of the pain that you were going to feel if you continue to be blind to some of these exceptions that are occurring in transit.
That is exactly right. And again, here, the impact is almost always going to be felt at the operational level. And that's where we want to make sure we understand the impact, that timing is critical. So if the recommendation comes after the shift, it's just analysis. If it comes during the shift, it can protect throughput, reduce delays, reduce costs that you have. And at the end of the day, I, as a supervisor, was only exposed to a single glass pane view, if you will, of my entire operations, and I was able to respond to those before that critical window closed. So the good news is that this does not need to start out as a massive enterprise rollout. The best way to start is usually focused. So step 1 is a discovery call, so we understand what systems do you have, where are your visibility gaps, and which operational problem is the most painful to you. Step 2 is a bit of an integration and architecture review. How would Redwood Connect bring the right data together, and how would Rebus consume and operationalize, if you will, that data? And we'd want to work out a good pilot scope to understand typically, then what do we usually go? 1 site, 1 or 2 critical use cases and integration points?
We want to establish value as quickly as possible. And so looking at that single site or single use case, isolating the first 3PL or the first WMS, but we want to cast a really wide net. So if we're looking at a single use case, let's say that you're using WMS1 at 3 different warehouses. Well, we can start delivering value for all 3 warehouses through a single connection. So it's all about speed to value.
That's exactly it. The key is to pick a use case where the value is measurable and it's impactful. So if you want to reduce labor alignment time or protect outbound windows, or really just reduce the manual reporting overhead that our team has to do, we want to focus on highlight those. And we're talking about getting it live with real data. It's not a matter of a half a year project or anything like that. We're talking roughly 30 to 60 days, depending on your operation model and your onboarding motion, if you will, that we're working through. But once that operating model is proven and live, we can expand to a lot more sites, a lot quicker with a lot more data sources, more tiers, more 3PL partners, as Dan mentioned, and more advanced AI use cases that we can bring together to supplement the operations that your team are running with smarter decision-making.
So let's talk about how to take action. In the post where you found this video, you will also see a couple of instructions on how to reach out. Please do. Additionally, if you have any questions, do ask in the chat. Adeep and I will be monitoring those, and we'll be able to respond to any of your questions, whether technical, functional, or you just want to know what we're doing on the weekends. Adeep.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Again, want to circle back to the main point. Warehouse and logistics teams are under pressure to move faster, operate leaner, make better decisions with fewer delays. We want to work with you guys to bring our experience of having done these over a decade into the past with new technologies and new improvements that were made over the years to come fill in those gaps. So thank you all for your time, and looking forward to hearing from you.